Before I begin, I want to ask all of you watching, where are you tuning in from tonight? Drop your city in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Whether you're in Dallas, Detroit, or a quiet town in Idaho, this story might just speak to something inside you, something you didn't expect. Now let me take you back to the night that changed everything. That day started out like any other. I'd been cleaning the kitchen when the sound of Samuel's footsteps came down the stairs. My son had come to visit for a few weeks after his recent move back into the state. At 26, he was trying to figure things out: relationships, career, life. And me? Well, I was just glad to have someone in the house again. It had been a long few years since the divorce, and the silence had settled in like dust. Samuel had always been my sensitive boy, the kind who hugged longer than most, and who always looked me in the eye when he spoke. Not every man does that, you know. Even his own father, Ethan, had a hard time with it. But Samuel was different. Always had been. That night, the rain started coming down hard. I remember the sound of it hitting the windows while I made dinner. Just something simple, pasta and roasted vegetables, because we both like to keep it light in the evenings. He offered to help, standing beside me barefoot, sleeves rolled up, slicing peppers with a quiet concentration. We moved easily around each other in the kitchen, passing, brushing, pumping shoulders, laughing at silly things. It felt warm, familiar, comfortable in a way I hadn't felt in years. After dinner, we curled up on the sofa with wine and an old movie playing. One of those classics I used to love but hadn't had a reason to watch lately. Samuel sat close, his arm draped casually behind me along the couch back. I could smell the subtle spice of his aftershave, feel the heat from his body radiating toward mine, and I kept thinking, is this what it feels like when you're not alone? The power flickered from the storm, making us both jump a little. Then it went out completely. Samuel laughed and looked at me. Well, guess we're stuck with candlelight now. I'm not mad about that, I said, smiling as I rose to find the box of matches and candles from under the sink. The house looked different in flickering light. Softer, slower, quieter. Something about it made everything feel more intimate, like we were the only two people in the world. We ended up sitting on the floor in front of the fireplace. I'd lit a small fire to keep the chill away, and the glow danced across Samuel's face. He was telling me about a girl he used to date, how it ended because he always felt like something was missing. She didn't really listen, he said, eyes fixed on the flame. Not the way you do. I remember the way my breath caught for a second. Not because of what he said, though it was sweet, but because of how he said it. There was something in his voice, something I hadn't heard from him before. I've always felt like I could talk to you about anything, Mom, he added quietly. There was a pause, a long one, and he looked at me not like a boy looking at his mother, but like a man seeing someone he truly knows. Do you ever feel lonely? He asked, his voice soft and real. That question, that simple question, opened something in me I hadn't let anyone touch in years. I looked down at my hands in my lap before I nodded. Yeah, I do. He shifted closer. Even with me here, I guess. I mean, yes and no. It's not your fault. It's just being alone becomes a habit. You forget how to share space. He didn't say anything right away. Instead, he reached over and took my hand. Just held it. Not in a son's way, not out of duty, but gently, deliberately. My chest felt tight. There was nothing inappropriate about it, nothing I could even name. But my heart was racing. And that's when he said it. The thing that would echo in my mind for days after. I don't like seeing you lonely, Mom. You deserve more than that. I tried to laugh it off, but the lump in my throat made it hard. It's part of life. You get older, things change. The house gets quiet. It doesn't have to stay that way. That line, it doesn't have to stay that way. He said it with such certainty, like he believed it. Like maybe he was trying to say something more. Not with his words, but with his presence, his gaze, the way his thumb moved gently along the side of my hand. The air in the room shifted, slowed. I could hear my own heartbeat. I pulled away, not harshly, just enough to stand and walk toward the kitchen, pretending I needed water, pretending I wasn't flustered, but inside I was spinning. Not because I didn't trust him. I did, but because I hadn't expected to feel something so vivid from a moment that was supposed to be just another quiet evening. I stood at the sink, gripping the counter, eyes closed. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I'll tell you what happened next, but only if you're ready. Because what came after wasn't what I ever thought I'd experience again. Not with anyone, let alone my own son. The next morning, sunlight poured into the kitchen like nothing had changed. But something had. I stood there in my robe, pouring coffee, trying to act like the night before hadn't unraveled something inside me. I could hear Samuel upstairs, his footsteps soft as he moved around in the guest room. Just knowing he was still in the house made everything feel alive. Like the silence I had grown so used to was suddenly full of meaning again. I didn't want to overthink it. Maybe I was tired. Maybe the storm, the wine, the candlelight. Maybe it all created a moment that didn't need to mean anything more. That's what I told myself over and over. Still, the words he'd said, "You deserve more than that. It doesn't have to stay that way." They looped in my mind like a whisper I couldn't shake. When he came down, he looked freshly showered, wearing a plain gray t-shirt and sweatpants. His hair was still damp. He smiled when he saw me. "Hey," he said softly like we had a secret. I tried to act normal, smiling back. "Good morning." He grabbed a mug and poured himself some coffee, standing close enough that our arms brushed. I pretended not to notice, but every nerve in me was already awake. We sat at the kitchen table. He told me about a dream he had. Something about being on a train that never stopped. The kind of dream you don't remember the details of, just the feeling. "It felt like I was chasing something," he said, staring into his cup. That struck me. I knew the feeling too well. "I've been thinking about what you said last night," he added. I swallowed hard. I didn't want to pretend. Not anymore. "Me too." He looked up at me, eyes serious. "I wasn't just talking. I meant it. You've always been everything to me, Mom. Not just a parent. You've been home." I felt something in my chest unravel again. This wasn't some flirtation. This wasn't casual. "I've always wanted to protect you. Ever since I was little," he continued. "Even when I was scared. Even when Dad yelled at you. Or when you cried quietly thinking no one heard, I saw it all. I never forgot." I had to look away. His words were too heavy, too honest. "I'm not a little boy anymore," he said gently. "And I know you're not just my mom. You're a woman, a beautiful one. One who deserves to be seen, to be loved." I stared at him, my heart pounding. "You can't say things like that," I whispered. "Why not?" "Because it's complicated." "No," he said firmly. "What we feel is real. It's been growing for a long time, hasn't it?" I didn't answer, but I didn't deny it either. We sat in silence. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound. I felt the edge of something between us, something fragile but undeniable. "Would you hate me?" he asked if I said I wished I could take care of you the way no one else ever did. I shook my head slowly. "No, Samuel. I could never hate you." He reached across the table, resting his hand on mine. I didn't pull away. I didn't want to. That afternoon the rain returned. Softer now, more of a mist. We stayed inside talking about nothing and everything. We looked through old photo albums, laughing at pictures from birthday parties and school plays. And then out of nowhere he said, something that nearly stopped my breath. "I used to imagine what it would feel like to just hold you. Not like a kid hugging his mom. I mean really hold you like a man." I froze. "I know how it sounds," he said quickly, his voice trembling. "But I'm not ashamed. I've always loved you. And lately it's felt like something more, deeper, stronger." I stood up, unsure of what to do with myself, walking slowly toward the window. The rain traced lazy paths down the glass. My reflection stared back at me. Older, softer, more fragile than I like to admit, but also alive. "Do you know how long it's been since anyone really looked at me?" I asked quietly. He didn't answer. "Years," I said. "Years of feeling invisible, of being touched only in passing. Talked to like I was just mom, nothing more." I turned back to him. His eyes were full, not of guilt, but of something far more honest, care, desire, respect. "I see you," he whispered. "I always have." He stepped closer, slow, cautious. His hands were warm when they touched my arms. His voice was low. "Let me take care of you tonight. No pressure, no expectations. Just let me remind you what it's like to be loved." I didn't say yes. I didn't have to. I didn't say no either. That night would come slowly, thoughtfully, and it would change everything. But in that moment, standing by the window, his hands resting on me like I was something precious, I realized something that made my heart race more than anything he had said. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to feel again, and maybe, just maybe, I deserved this moment. The house was quieter than usual that evening, not because no one was talking, but because everything unspoken seemed to fill the air. After dinner, I washed the dishes with trembling hands. Each plate clink a reminder that the moment was approaching. Samuel had been calm, gentle, even, as if he sensed something delicate was unfolding and didn't want to rush it. He didn't push. He didn't even bring up what we'd said earlier. But I could feel it. The pull between us growing, settling, taking root. I went upstairs after putting away the last glass, pausing in the hallway between our rooms. My door was open, his was closed. My heart thudded it as I stepped into my room and closed the door softly behind me, pressing my back against it, eyes shut tight. What was I doing? I had looked at myself in the mirror. The same woman I'd seen for years. Soft lines at the corners of my mouth. A gentle sag at the neckline. Eyes a little more tired than they used to be. But beneath that, something else. Something awakened. I changed into something simple. A long cotton nightgown that wasn't meant to be sexy, but felt suddenly too vulnerable. My bare shoulders chilled slightly from the night air. I ran a brush through my hair slowly, more out of nerves than vanity. And then a quiet knock, not loud, not hurried. I opened the door. Samuel stood there barefoot in a white t-shirt and drawstring pants, his hands in his pockets, his gaze steady but soft. "Can I come in?" I nodded. He stepped inside, looking around like it was the first time he'd really seen the room. The lamp cast a warm yellow glow, and the curtains fluttered slightly from the breeze. He didn't move closer at first. He just looked at me. "You don't have to say anything," he began. "If this doesn't feel right, I'll go. I mean that." I swallowed hard, then spoke. "It doesn't feel wrong." He stepped toward me slowly, reaching out to brush a strand of hair from my cheek. His fingers lingered, warm against my skin. "I just want to be close to you," he whispered. "That's all. Nothing more, unless you want it." I nodded again, my voice caught somewhere between fear and something else. A deep longing that had been buried for far too long. He sat beside me on the edge of the bed, his hand still resting against my cheek. I turned into it, eyes closed, breathing in the comfort of someone who knew me. All of me. For the first time in so many years, I didn't feel like I had to hide. "I thought about this moment," he murmured. "But I never imagined he'd let me in like this." "I didn't think I would either," I said quietly. "But here we are." We sat like that for what felt like hours. No rush, no demands, just the quiet beating of two hearts that had been missing something and maybe had found it in each other. He lay beside me on the bed, pulling the covers over us both, fully clothed, fully still, his arm around me, my back to his chest, our breath sensing as the night deepened. I didn't sleep at first, my mind spun with what-ifs, with doubts, with questions that had no easy answers. But his hand on my arm was grounding. His warmth against me was like a balm to every cracked piece of me I had tucked away. "Does this feel okay?" he asked softly in the dark. "Yes," I whispered. And it did more than okay. I thought about how many nights I'd spent alone listening to the empty sound of my own thoughts. And now here was this man, my son, yes, but also someone who saw me not just in the role the world gave me, but as a woman, as a soul, as someone worthy of love, comfort, and care. We talked until the sky started to lighten. Memories, childhood stories, laughter tucked between tears. There was nothing rushed about it. Nothing inappropriate. Just a raw human closeness that neither of us could deny anymore. And sometime before dawn, when sleep finally came, it was the first night in years that I didn't feel haunted by loneliness. I woke to the soft weight of his arms still around me, and I knew whatever came next, nothing would ever be quite the same. The morning light crept in slowly, painting the room in soft gold. I opened my eyes to the quiet hum of the world outside. Birds, wind, distant cars. All of it somehow softer, calmer. Samuel was still there beside me, his arm draped across my waist, his breathing slow and even. For a moment I didn't move. I just listened to the silence between us. A silence that wasn't empty this time. It was full of meaning. Full of what we'd shared. Not just the night before, but the connection that had quietly grown over years of being each other's constant. Eventually he stirred. His arm tightened slightly, as if he didn't want to let go, even in sleep. Then he blinked awake and looked at me, his face peaceful, unguarded. "Hey," he whispered. "Hey," I whispered back. No panic, no regret, just calm. I brushed his hair back from his forehead. A simple, quiet gesture. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in years," he said with a soft smile. There were so many things we could have said, so many ways we could have dissected what last night meant, but we didn't. We didn't need to. There was no apology in his eyes, no confusion, just a shared understanding. We had crossed a line, a quiet, intimate line, but not one made of shame. Later we made breakfast together like nothing had changed, even though everything had. The kitchen smelled like coffee and toast, and the radio played low in the background. We moved in sync, not talking much, but exchanging glances, small smiles, fingers brushing on the counter. The unspoken tension was still there, but it wasn't heavy. It felt like a question that had been answered. Anita had been named, not in desperation but in trust. We sat across from each other at the table. He reached for the butter and asked, "Do you think we're going to regret this?" I looked at him for a long moment. "No," I said finally. "Do you?" He shook his head. "Not for a second." I exhaled. "Then maybe that's enough for now." That day we took a walk through the park, something we hadn't done in years. The sun was bright but not too warm. The wind rustled through the trees, and the air smelled faintly of summer grass. He walked close to me, our arms brushing every few steps. At one point we passed a couple sitting on a bench, holding hands, laughing. Samuel looked at them, then at me. "You deserve that, you know." I gave a quiet laugh. "At my age?" "Yes, especially at your age." There was no teasing in his voice, no sarcasm. Just sincerity. "Do you think we'll talk about this years from now?" I asked him. "Look back and wonder what we were doing." He was quiet for a moment. "Then maybe we'll look back and be grateful we had something real, even if it was complicated." I nodded slowly. That felt honest. That felt true. Back home the evening fell gently. We spent it on the couch again, this time curled under a blanket. The storm had passed. Outside the world was calm again. But inside something had shifted permanently. He kissed my forehead before heading up to bed. A slow, lingering kiss that said everything words couldn't. Not a demand, not a promise, just presence, just care. I stayed downstairs a little longer, sipping tea, letting my thoughts settle. What we shared wasn't about rules or roles. It wasn't about expectation. It was about timing, about emotion, about seeing someone clearly, maybe for the first time. When I finally turned out the lights and went to bed, I knew I wouldn't be alone in that quiet house anymore. Even if life changed, even if things took us down different paths, eventually we had this strange, beautiful, unexpected chapter that reminded me I was still alive, still capable of feeling, still worthy of connection. And for the first time in a long, long while, I didn't feel like I was waiting for something more. I had it. Even if just for a moment I had it. And that was enough.